Hello, my friends. This is John Gilbert. Jim Quirk, the editor of Photoplay Magazine, has asked me to write an outline of my career in pictures. Behind his request lies one of two purposes: to destroy me utterly, or to discover first-hand information regarding some of his best enemies. Also, Jim has assured me that a great many readers of his magazine would like to hear of my early asininities. So I am complying with his request. An outline of my career in pictures follows, mostly as it happened. Some of it censored, some of it omitted. None of it elaborated, all gospel, according to Saint Cinema. And may God have mercy on my soul. And those of you who have your brickbats ready, permit me to remind you of the proverb about people who live in glass houses, and that the good is oft interred with their bones. In March 1915, I was a member of the Baker Stock Company in Spokane, Washington. I was 17 years old. I was the stage manager of the company. The title was important, the job was not. The stage manager of a stock company is the assistant director, and his duties consist of ringing the curtain up and down, calling the overtures and warnings to the actors that their cues for entrance are approaching, holding a manuscript at rehearsals, making out stage settings and property plots, and seeing to it that every prop or article used during each act is in its correct position. If during the action of the play, a white-faced, suffering little mother says to the swarthy villain, "Here is the will, and there is no will," God help the stage manager. I hold no brief for my qualities as an assistant stage director. For our opening bill, the management secured Alias Jimmy Valentine, the well-known underworld drama. The big scene of the play and the climax of the last act takes place when the little girl Kitty is locked in a safe, and Jimmy and his pal Red, both reformed crooks, must, in order to release the child, open the great time locks by touch, thus divulging their identities to the detective Doyle, who watches through a half-open door. Jimmy sandpapers his fingertips and slowly turns the dial. Red kneels beside him. The stage is dark. Jimmy calls, "Match." Red strikes a match and holds the flame close to the dial. Jimmy blows out the light. Once more, he sandpapers his fingertips till they bleed, and once more applies his sensitive nerves to the dial. I watch spellbound from the wings, awaiting my cue to ring down the curtain. What should have happened was this. The safe door is suddenly opened. The little girl falls into Jimmy's arms. A spotlight, from nowhere in particular, plays upon her. The detective enters and confronts Jimmy, while the girl Jimmy loves enters from the opposite side. A beautiful scene should have been enacted. On that opening night, it wasn't. I rang the curtain down before Kitty was out of the safe. To this day, I don't know why, but I did. And the show was over. And I was fired. I should have been thrown bodily from the theater and blacklisted from the American stage. I had ruined the scene for the actors and had created a ridiculous situation which the first night critics could chortle over when they reached their typewriters. But I was forgiven. After the first violent outburst had subsided, it was remembered that I was still an invited guest at a party given by the members of the troupe after the performance. Beer was served, and chili beans, and more beer, and then beer, and these actor folk, bless them, grew shiny-faced and mellow and friendly, and though they all acknowledged my brainlessness, they condoned it and told tales of their own stupidity and anecdotes of their early stage lives, and more bottles foamed and more stories were told, and my last blurred memory of the evening is that of my vain attempt to drown the baritone of the leading man with my choir-trained falsetto in tribute to Sweet Adeline. Our stock company died in its early youth. We produced but 4 plays. One morning I was given a notice to tack on the bulletin board. I have the notice still. It was worded in brief as follows: To the members of the Auditorium Baker Stock Company, ladies and gentlemen, we regret to inform you that we are forced to bring the engagement of the Baker players to close, week ending Saturday, March 20th, 1915. The management feels grateful toward each and every member of the Baker Company. However, we feel we are unable to lose any more money. So kindly accept this as 2 weeks' notice for the closing of the engagement. I know of no people so sensitive as actors, as easily pleased as children, and as easily depressed. The members of our little troupe were thrown into a chaos of mingled emotions. Some looked forward eagerly to their return to New York, while others gathered in little groups and worriedly discussed the future. A medicine show was coming through town next week, maybe a chance there for some. For others who had saved no money, the outlook appeared dark. Little joy was displayed during the next 2 weeks. There was no party given on the night of our last performance. An atmosphere of gloom pervaded the darkened theater. Our tribe had been broken up. Some were hastily packing to make the eastbound train that night. Others disappeared to get quietly and solitarily drunk. The stage doorman dismissed us individually with a nod and a grunt. The stage doorman still had his job. They folded their tents like the Arabs and as silently stole away. I caught the Oregon flyer for Portland. When I met my father, who was directing a stock company in Portland, for some unaccountable reason, I felt ashamed. Not that I had had anything to do with the closing of our company, but I was out of a job. And inasmuch as I had supported myself since my mother's death 3 years earlier, I exaggerated my present predicament until I felt positively degraded. There was no opening for me in the Portland theater, nor did I particularly care to return to the Oregonian, a newspaper on which I had formerly been employed. My mind was bent on acting. What to do? Aimless wanderings, movie shows, the $1 Million Mystery Selig Zoo pictures with Tom Santschi and Kathleen Williams, Earl Williams and Anita Stewart. A new fascination. I could do that. I should photograph well. Charlie Chaplin. Grand. And one night an honest-to-goodness Merton prayer, "Oh God, please make me a movie actor." No sooner was my burning desire communicated to my father than a letter was dispatched to Walter Edwards, then a director of pictures for Thomas H. Ince of the New York Motion Picture Corporation at Inceville, Santa Monica. 2 especially posed photographs were enclosed. And that, my friends, is what led me to seek work in motion pictures. I hope you'll join me for part 2 of my life, where I become a movie actor. I hope you'll enjoy it.